humility, spirituality, and faith. But the nation, as it settled in the promised land, lost these three precious truths, and now they were in bondage again. And they were in bondage to the Babylonian king and its people. But out of those men and women in exile, Nebuchadnezzar made it his specific task to select the most able-bodied and the most able-minded young men from Judah, bring them into the palace to be able to reprogram them, give them a new kind of literature, a new kind of language, a new system of values, a new way to think. And he took the best of them, and the Bible narrates the story of at least four of them: Daniel and the three friends that he had, that we have just briefly read about here, as we look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. When they were put into the palace, notice what is it the first thing that the king tries to do? Soften them up, banqueting them, wining and dining them. And here Daniel drew his first line. He drew his line of resistance by training his appetite. Did you hear that? He drew his line of resistance by training his appetites. He said, I do not want the abundance of this food. I do not want all the enjoyment of the king's table. Give me a meager diet, and I will be happy and content with that. Gentlemen, I learn a very significant lesson here. You and I are responsible every day of our lives for training our hungers and training our passions. We are filled with hungers. We have physical hungers, emotional hungers, intellectual hungers, relational hungers, spiritual hungers. And it is imperative in a disciplined way that we train what we begin to enjoy and shun what we know can get us softened up and lose us to the service of the King of Kings. How did he do this? He learned to resist it early enough so that he would not get trapped into the lifestyle where he got used to these desires. About a year ago, my telephone rang at 11:30 at night. It was a medical doctor, and the doctor was crying on the phone. And he said, Ravi, I needed to talk to you alone. I have committed something very serious that I think could end up costing me my life itself. I said, what happened? He said, as you know, I'm an emergency surgeon, and I was doing emergency surgery this evening, and they brought in a young woman who was very far gone. He said she had been so brutally beaten by her husband. I had never seen a human body so broken up and so ravaged. Virtually every bone in that body had been broken. I saw this pitiful sight as the ambulance people brought her into the emergency room. I knew she was already too far gone, but I desperately wanted to help her. And so rather than even trying something simple and something superficial, I cut the side of her rib cage and put my hand into that rib cage in order to get a hold of her heart with a direct heart massage to see if I could get it going again. He said, but the longer I worked on it, I felt it had become just a dead piece of rubber and was not responding. And quite heartbroken himself, looking at this shattered body in front of him, he said, I walked away, so dejected, so saddened by what I'd seen. He said, and just then as I'd removed my surgical gloves and was washing my hand, I noticed a very thin paper cut on one of my fingers. It was nothing more than the size of a paper cut. So I started to wash it away. I had got that from forcing my hand on the side of the rib cage. He said, and then the nurse walked in and said, Doctor, I've got something to show you. I was going through the pockets of this woman, and I found these syringes, these dirty used needles, and all of her packets of drugs in there. And all of a sudden it dawned on this doctor that he may well have plunged his hand into the rib cage of somebody who could now have put his life at risk either for HIV or for hepatitis because of that cut. And I looked at the doctor, I said to the doctor on the phone, I said, wait a minute, did you not say it is just the size of a paper cut, a very thin cut? He said, yes. And I said, you're telling me that a simple little cut like that, so small, can actually put you at risk for a disease such as hepatitis or HIV? He said, absolutely. He said, I have already been called in by the chief, sir, of the surgery to be able to go through some tests, and it'll be a few days before they will be absolutely sure. Gentlemen, if one little cut in a finger can put this physical body at risk, think of how often you and I put ourselves at risk spiritually when we do not draw the lines of our appetites and train them so that we don't come away with those paper cuts that could ultimately be more destructive than you had ever envisioned.